This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. I'm really excited to introduce a sponsor for our show, Dr. Tom Kelly, based out of Melbourne, Australia. He's founder and CEO of a new startup healthcare AI company known as Heidi Health. We're going to learn all about that. We're going to learn why he founded the company. We're going to talk about healthcare and AI as well as the future, and it's going to be a fantastic conversation. By the way, all these links, you can check it out for free in the show notes. And I'm happy to welcome Dr. Tom to the show. Welcome, Tom.
Yeah. Hi, Chris. Yeah. So happy to be here. And yeah, looking forward to the chat.
Yeah. We want to thank you for sponsoring the show. And then so I'll start out with, I love hearing people's origin story, just how you got started, your journey towards founding this company. I know you experienced a lot of roadblocks, but now you're come out with a Series A funding round. And so talk about that and what you plan to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no worries. We're trying to get the word out about Heidi in the States. So yeah, I'm Tom. I like to tell like the family history of myself. I feel like it's helpful. Clinicians used to hearing that. My mom and dad, both immigrants, they never went to university. They met at a family restaurant. So that was where I spent most of my childhood, at a local library reading books. And I think my childhood was very warm, but like quite unstable, which kind of led me to think of a career that would be stable. If everything went, actually, one question, can I swear in the podcast?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So if everything went to shit, I could still have a job and provide a living. So basically I went to undergraduate studies similar to college. So I studied mostly mathematics. So that was like where my kind of interest in some of this stuff started. And then I was lucky enough to get into medicine, went to Melbourne University. And then from about 2017 for say 4 years there, worked in hospitals. So the system here is a bit different. You are like a resident, but you're not actually training for a specialty initially. So you rotate across lots of different places. So I did like family medicine, emergency surgery. In the end, I was a vascular surgery resident. So was starting my training before putting it on pause and going all in on Heidi in middle of 2021. And yeah, I can talk more about the inspiration, but I think in a nutshell, I was just finding that so much of my time in the hospital or as a clinician was just spent not doing the stuff I went to medical school for. The bits I liked were admitting patients, like problem solving, doing the surgery, managing the person like after the surgery. But all of the administrative headache, I think like the pajama time, missed birthdays and anniversaries and whatever else, it was just, so much of it was just wasted. Like it wasn't because I was doing patient care, it was because I was writing forms or like writing a note for the future lawyer that's going to try to sue me. So I always found, as soon as I saw what these AI, like these generative models could do, as early as like 2018 range, I was always toying with it. And then when GPT-3 came out, it was finally good enough. Like it was good enough to really do a lot of the work that doctors could do. And yeah, decided to take a risk, like main character energy. I know I put all this time into medicine, but like this just feels like an opportunity worth pursuing. So yeah, haven't looked back.
Yeah, your story actually reminds me a lot of like Zuckerberg and Bill Gates. They're at Harvard and they're pursuing these studies and they've got this really interesting field guy and the ability to start a company. And a lot of the listeners are physicians, so they're listening and they can empathize with you, the headaches and the frustrations. And as you end up doing something you'd even get trained to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love this idea of how you took a a leap of faith. And so really what's really interesting is AI has really come mainstream ever since the OpenAI's, the GPT, ChatGPT. And so how did you see this early on, and what was the inspiration behind starting it? And how did you put the things together? It almost seemed like perfect timing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for the comparison. Hopefully, definitely not that successful yet. Yeah. So I think definitely for me, like the studying maths was quite helpful. So we learned about like recurrent neural networks, and like for physicians, it's literally just like a neuron. Like you have a point, you literally code a neuron. So it's like this neuron, it has a activation potential. It can either say 1 or 0. Like it can say, yep, I'm on, or nope, I'm off. And if you think about like all the dendrites of a neuron, like how they connect to lots of other neurons, exactly the same idea. You have lots of connections. Each connection has different activation potentials, so different weights. So sometimes when you hear about AI, people talk about 70 billion parameters. So really what it is just all the connections between the neurons and all their different rules and weights. And when you have lots of them, like our brains, you can start to do really interesting things. Like you can encode information in a really efficient way. So I think like pretty early on, I learned about that, and I conceptually understood like how it would trend. Eventually, like books in the 60s and 70s spoke about artificial intelligence and like how, I don't know if anyone's going to go see the movie Dune. In the movie Dune, they have banned artificial intelligence because it's far in the future and it was dangerous to humanity. People thought about it, but the big problem was the computer chips to run these software was not powerful enough. Like our brain was about 100 times more powerful than any chip that was out there. And that's just one brain. Like it's not even that many people. These models couldn't really do very much. They weren't very smart. But I think it's around 2017 range where I was working at a company alongside medical school, and we were doing support chats. And in these support chats, we built a couple of those chatbots, the ones that everyone used to hate, like the airline chats where you just can't get to talk to a human, that kind of thing. But my experience was that the models were ahead of where I'd expected. They were pretty good at figuring out what you wanted. And yeah, for me, that in that experience, like I was studying in med school, but I was starting to realize, oh, wow, this is ahead of where I thought it was. So if this gets 10 times better over the next few years, it's going to be pretty scary, impressive. Yeah, so I guess like some mixture of luck, studied the right things, got the right early experiences, and then just thought through what would happen next. Yeah, I'm a little skeptical. I know everyone's freaked out about AI. I'm a bit skeptical how far you can get with the current architectures and approaches. So I think what we'll see is over the next few years, a lot of the different models will converge. Like they'll all be roughly as good as GPT-4, maybe a little bit better, until there's some other architectural breakthroughs. But in the meantime, tools like Heidi can still give you your evenings back. And I think that's enough. I'm not as doomsday as everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fascinating. And so talk about the work how does a lot of clinicians listening are like, what is Heidi AI? How can it help me? What does it do? Talk about how you put things together and you came up with a solution to a really big problem, which is just documenting and doing HMPs and all of that.
Yeah. So I think the problem for me actually started in outpatient departments. So that was the first experience for me of like just overwhelming patient demand and in a clinic setting. As a junior doctor, you're not on the hook like an attending where you're out in practice and you're running your business. So for me, that was the first experience of, wow, I have 100 patients to see in 30 slots or something. And yeah, just so much of that time was just wasted. So I think the overall mission of Heidi is just halve the time it takes to deliver world-class healthcare. So it's a broad mission, but it's pretty simple. Like, how do we just get rid of the wasted time and put doctors back in the center, doing the things they want to do? So for me, the whole electronic health record as a concept is the cause of most of that wasted time. The point of the record, in my opinion, there's like maybe 3 things. First thing is just medical legal proof. You're documenting what you did so that you're proving to everyone that you did think about the heart attack that could be causing the chest pain. The second thing is your memory. You want to have a record of what you've done. The next time you see the patient, you can quickly review and see what's happened and what other clinicians have done. So that's actually useful. And then the third thing is like some sort of synthesis that happens. So we all know that when you take a history from a patient, you sit down, you think about what's going on, you read through the record, there's some kind of magic that happens where you're thinking through and processing everything that's going on. Maybe you go back and ask a couple more questions, maybe you feel their abdomen again, and then ultimately you write the note and decide what you're going to do. And then obviously in review and in progress, usually it's just monitoring your plan on each of the issues that you identified initially. So I just think there's a better format for the way that records work. So today, like if you jump on Heidi, it's free to generate notes. You can basically record a consultation. There's no actually audio recording, but I just use the word record because it's easy to understand. You click start. There's a patient-doctor conversation. You click stop. You can pick what kind of structure you want us to write. So do you want us to write a letter? Do you want us to create a SOAP note that you can copy into EMR? Do you want us to summarize it in a paragraph for a handover? So it's pretty flexible. You can create what you like. And yeah, we don't charge for that actual generation task. So you can do that for free. The way we make money is by selling some cool like pro features that do things that other scribes don't do. But for the basic stuff, like back to that mission, our mission is just to halve the time it takes. It's not about making the most money right now. So there's lots of stuff we can do as a company to make money over time. But for now, just want to get this in the hands of as many clinicians as we can. And yeah, like back to the EHR thing. So it's a bit of a tangent, but I think ultimately Heidi becomes an AI resident for everyone. So if you had a resident that could do everything in the EHR, short of pushing the computer around, probably. Imagine you record the session, you dictate a plan, you agree with Heidi, you look through on your phone or on iPad or on the computer. Yep, I agree with this plan of action. I want an echo, I want an ECG, I want troponins and cardiac enzymes. I want to send this person to the cath lab. I want like whatever the plan is. And then you click action and Heidi just actions it all. And EHRs already currently work with this idea of drafting and then signing off. So Heidi will just, in a virtual machine or on your machine, click through all the windows, do all the things that you want to do. And then you can just go on to the next patient. And then you come back in 5 minutes and you sign off the things Heidi's done. So maybe it sounds sci-fi, but in the end, I think Heidi should be like a conduit to the record. The record is this weird CRM that you stop using because it's just badly designed and wastes heaps of time. And Heidi reads all the information you need, like contextually surfaces all the blood results, all the things that you'll likely want to know based on what's going on in the visit, and then actions all the things that you want to do, even as much as like calling colleagues and telling them about the plan, or like that's where it gets sci-fi, but even explaining patients the plan or the why about their condition makes a lot of sense to me, that they can have a kind of anonymous conversation with Heidi as long as it's all guardrailed and careful and compliant. There's lots of hard things we have to solve, but I think, anyway, today it writes notes. It's easy. You just copy paste. It's not that complicated. I think tomorrow we'll start working on more of those kind of in EHR automations to help speed doctors up.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Feel your max with Brooks Running and the all-new Ghost Max 2. They're the shoes you deserve, designed to streamline your stride and help protect your body. Treat yourself to feel-good landings on an ultra-high stack of super comfy nitrogen-infused cushion that takes the edge off every step, every day. The Brooks Ghost Max 2. You know, technically, they're a form of self-care. Brooks, let's run there. Head to brooksrunning.com to learn more.
Yeah, really fascinating. And I love this. Well, later on, we'll talk about how Heidi Health plans to adapt and to address some of the nuances that clinicians face. And so talk about because you recently raised Series A. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. A lot of companies don't even get to that stage. And how is are you working within just Australian hospitals? Are you going first locally and expanding, and about your expansion?
Yeah. So the product's international kind of from day one. So we've always had some users all over the world. Yeah. So it's HeidiHealth.com, not .au, which is the Australian extension. But obviously I'm in Australia for now. We'll be coming across for a long stay. Yeah, definitely we're focused on the United States for the next few years. There's just the most clinicians to support. Arguably your system's most complicated and hard one to operate in. As far as the benefit we can do to the world, there's the most juice, I think, in the States. But yeah, so in the last few years, interesting. So before ChatGPT, most clinicians or physicians had a sort of like a skeptical perspective of AI, I would say, unless they were very early adopters. There had to be the kind of doctors that would walk around with like bone conduction headphones in the ward rounds, like that kind of like Bluetooth everything, like the stethoscope with no ear hole, like that kind of vibe. Anyway, so they were early adopters. But so what we did was we actually focused a bit on something slightly different. So we did a patient pre-consultation workflow. So some of the physicians listening might have heard of Notable or maybe Babylon and Ada Health. Like it's like those symptom checker kind of experiences. So yeah, so we built something similar, a little new age where a patient could just have an open-ended conversation with Heidi before their visit. We would then summarize that. We would ask relevant questions for the doctor, and then we would summarize it all before the visit. And the reason we did that was because the clinicians didn't actually need to use AI. They didn't need to do anything. They would just open their visit and then they would see a really nice summary and they would find that super useful. So we implemented that with like probably 40-ish different health clinics and locations and like hundreds of different physicians. They were really loving it. Then we built a scribe that was attached to that. And then everyone wanted the scribe on its own because we'd built it in a way that was very tethered to the other things we'd built. Yeah, but the plan is still to release a lot of the things we built. I still think they're good ideas, but yeah, everyone just wants tools for themselves now, which is exciting for us.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about infrastructure, and it sounds like are you building on open source, like open source code from the GitHub, or is it just you have this software that you developed and you're just building on top of that? And
yeah, it's honestly like a combination of approaches. So the only way that we can afford the free model as a company is by running more efficient, smaller models than some of the large foundation models like your GPT-4 and some of the other ones out there. So the plan is over time, as consultations happen, obviously with the consent of all parties involved, but with large models, you can do this thing called fine tuning. So fine tuning, it's if you think let's say you took a clinician that was trained got out of medical school. A good way to think of fine tuning is like residency. So you can show them lots of examples of a particular type and you train them and you reward them and you keep on nudging them in a particular direction. And then by the end of residency, obviously they're extremely specialized in that one thing. What we will do, and we've already started to do, is take different models that are available. Some of these models cost billions of dollars to train. So we can't really get into that game. Google and these big companies will build these amazing technologies. But what they won't have is this kind of proprietary set of information about how doctors think, or how do cardiologists in California behave, or how do family medicine physicians in Minnesota manage their patients. As consultations happen on Heidi, we can fine-tune models and increasingly fine-tune them in a really specific way so that the model seems to have a knack about knowing what the referral pathways are in Californian cardiology, or which echo departments to send them to. Or that's what I'm interested in. And then the other benefit just running the business is that we can create smaller models so they cost less to run. We can offer the service for free. And basically, rather than charging an exorbitant price just for the basic trick of generating a note, which is what most scribes do, we only charge for like amazing product, like really good product. Like for people that use Notion, it'll be like Notion instead of Word docs. Like Heidi will be Notion. It'll be amazing. Lots of different things you can do with it. Yeah. Everyone else will probably be just trying to rip you off today with GPT-4, which is understandable. Like it's definitely a good business move, but I don't think it's sustainable in the long run.
Yeah. The other question I know a lot of clinicians are asking, because a lot of the cohort are US based, is, and maybe some ideas is, how does Heidi integrate with like healthcare EHR? Like here it's Epic and Cerner. Those are two biggest ones. Other smaller ones, but is it like just software and then you just integrate it into the EHR, or talk about how you
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we work with a pod Redox. So we can integrate with pretty much in the States. Some of them we've done before. So like Athena is a common primary care one. And then there's obviously Epic and Cerner, Allscripts and others. Yeah, we definitely can do it. Usually, unfortunately, especially for the bigger health systems, just the way it works, like every instance of Epic is different. So there's some hoops to jump through. So usually our first approach is just, you don't actually really need integration, honestly. So in Heidi, when you're recording a consult, you can add context. So you can copy paste anything you want into Heidi. Anything you want us to know, you can write in before we generate a note.
Yeah.
And you can also just copy paste. Honestly, I don't think it's that bad. Imagine you've got two tabs open and one is Heidi, one's Epic. And we can put a button that says send to EHR, but it feels a bit uncertain. Like, where's it going to go exactly? When's it going to happen? If I click the button and I go back to my Epic tab, does it appear? When's it going to appear? Like a bit unstable. So it's, in my opinion, it's much easier to just copy paste. There's actually not terribly much benefit to the integration. The main benefit, I would say, is that the read access, so you can get a bit more context about the patient. If you're doing a review visit, obviously you want to have the information of the initial visit available to you. And the idea of just getting all the demographic data and like being able to pick a patient from a drop-down list, like all these things are useful. So usually we would first make sure they really like the product on its own. Then second, look at integrating with whatever system or software you're using. I think eventually, so this is again like a couple of years away probably, we're currently working on that kind of action approach where you install like a Chrome extension and we can work within the EHR as you. So to do, some people might have seen a macro before where you press a button and the computer does a few things. So yeah, it'd be like that. If you want to open the patient file, you click a macro, we open it for you. If you want to draft a prescription, we run the same macro to do it. But yeah, I think so today, like short answer is yes, we can do it. I'm not convinced there's that much benefit, honestly, but yeah, happy to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in a lot of, because we have more, I think we have a live stream coming up soon and we'll talk more about it. And a lot of doctors will talk about any sort of, do you face any regulatory hurdles or anything with insurance? Will this software being incorporated into EHRs trigger any regulatory flags or any sort of those types of challenges?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Yeah, we spend heaps of time. We call it safety. Like we have a massive page on our website about it. I think some of the regulatory stuff, so that's like your FDA, is this a medical device kind of conversation, is still to be regulated. So they haven't really created a clear stance on their approach. They're just still operating under the current software as a medical device framework, which basically says that your software is not a medical device as long as it doesn't do management and diagnosis. So you'll find on Heidi, if you record a visit, we'll only reference things that you explicitly mention for management and diagnosis purposes. And otherwise, so that's from like a regulatory perspective, it's a bit of an unknown.
Yeah.
I think if and when regulation comes, I think it's actually a good thing. I'm quite worried about how many sort of, we have it on the website, like cowboys and hobbyists there are. So it's my wife's a doctor. I built this Scribe. I just delete medical records. I don't have any like compliance infrastructure. I don't have any ISO certifications. I'm HIPAA compliant, which is like an obscenely low standard. And like cowboy take the wheel and hope that it's all right. But we're GDPR compliant, which is extremely difficult to get, comply with the Canadian standards, Australian standards, US standards. And like everyone, it's like the ocean that raises all boats. Like everyone gets that high degree of compliance.
Yeah.
The other thing is, so from like an indemnity and insurance perspective, again, not all of them have clear perspectives, but it falls into the bucket of just another scribing tool, honestly. Like how is it much different to Nuance or dictation or a dictaphone in your room? Like I think for me, it's very similar. If anything, it's better. Like with a dictaphone, there's tapes that remain. With us, there's nothing but the notes. What else? Obviously, like patient privacy and consent as well. So we have an approach to consent, like things you can share with your patients or like a way to explain to patients what's going on. We don't use identifiable data for training. So there shouldn't be any issue where models reproducing personally identifiable information like that will never happen under our watch. Again, can't speak for others, but like we take this stuff really seriously. From day one, we've always had a full-time compliance person. Yeah, I would encourage more regulation and rules. Also, a lot of the companies aren't run by clinicians, so I think they don't quite understand the implications and potential damage sometimes. Like they haven't had to sit in medical school hearing about all of the cases of scenarios where confidentiality wasn't upheld, or like notifiable diseases where you have to notify the government, like sexually transmitted or otherwise. So I think it's easy to be naive. Like, oh, I go to the doctor and I wouldn't mind if my data is used for training. Like, I don't really talk about anything that's salacious. But I think, yeah, because we're run by clinicians, we take it quite seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Really fascinating. Again, we're going to have a series where you're coming on. And so we'll talk more about these regulation and personal health information. Looking forward, what do you see healthcare and AI, and how does Heidi Health fit into this? And lastly, how can people sign up and try out the free trial and just, see if they like it or not?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, maybe I'll start with that. So yeah, it's not a free trial. It's actually just free. So there's no like time limit or credit card. If you just go to HeidiHealth.com, like the girl's name, HeidiHealth.com, you can just try it. We'll help you set it up. You can do it with us. So we have a human support option where literally sometimes it's me doing the demos, or you can just set it up yourself. So you can go through a tour. We'll show you how it all works. And yeah, you can just start generating notes, recording your consults, message us anytime if you have feedback or problems. We're happy to help you set it up. As far as AI in healthcare, so I think I've seen two paths. So one path that you'll see some companies go on, again, I would say generally non-clinician led, is AI is going to replace doctors. And that's the fear we all have. So that's like your forward health clinic with the shipping container where you like go in and it scans you and it magics you into figuring out what's going on. Or like I think it's Prenuvia, which is like the MRI scanning company where they scan you and now you don't need to talk to doctors anymore. I think that's all like vaporware and snake oil. I think they need to just do some like basic learning about sensitivity and specificity and understand how silly their ideas are. I think the path that we're going to try to walk on is initially just eliminate administration. Like I said, half the time it takes. Go back to the good old days. No lawyers, no EHR. Like talk to the person in front of me. I remember them because I see them all the time. I do synthesis on the spot, and then I walk out of the room and go see the next patient. Like I don't worry about, did I document this thing right? Or have I met the criteria of prior authorization so this person doesn't get bankrupted? Like all of this stuff is just a waste of time. It's not what doctors want to do. That's what we're going to try to do. Can we get Heidi to do as much of that as reasonable, useful way, not charge an arm and a leg to do it? And that's the step one. I think step two is raising the bar of clinical care, but again, in a way that puts the doctor in the middle. So a good example is this whole like putting an AI doctor in the pocket of every patient. Patients currently use ChatGPT to self-diagnose themselves all the time. So wouldn't it be better if those conversations were federated and connected to you as a clinician? So imagine if you could share like an AI resident like Heidi with your patients. They can have a conversation with Heidi anytime if you need any support, advice, feedback on your medicines, questions, answers. You share it with the patient. They can chat to it. But now it's connected to you, and Heidi does all of the magic about escalating the patient at the right time, suggesting they go seek care, suggesting they book an appointment with you. If you're too busy, routing them to someone else or routing them to the right level of care. Another floor raiser is crowdsourcing information. So imagine you're a family physician in the middle of America, you're seeing a patient and you just don't know what to do. Like you've never seen this presentation before. This person has some, I don't know, a good example, like some weird like central neck pain and you can't figure out what's going on. It always seems to appear. And you ask Heidi, has anyone seen this before? And we say, yes, like the symptoms of this case seem to be similar to these other 20 cases submitted by colleagues. One of them is at the Mayo Clinic. There's this novel syndrome called, I don't know, like neck ganglionitis. And here's how you can do a physical exam to try to identify it. And if you find it, here's what you should do. And again, it's not the model. It's not the model telling you what to do. It's just crowdsourcing from the network. So You can submit any case to Heidi for teaching and education. It's all de-identified and anonymized. And now you have like a million's doctor's wisdom in the palm of your hand. So I think that's the stuff I'm really excited to build. I think as a clinician, like that's what I would use when I was a resident seeing patients. I would have loved to be like, what would the attending do in this scenario? I don't want to wake them up. This person's not that sick, but I also don't know what the hell to do. Or the 1,000,001 scenarios where people don't even have access to healthcare. Like they have someone who is a nurse and maybe is out of their depth, but there's no medical advice around. Wouldn't it be better if that person had some advice? So I think patient side experiences, floor raisers for clinicians. I don't see a world where people don't want to have a human figure for their care. And for the foreseeable future, like the next 40, 50 years, I don't think a computer is going to be able to feel a pulse. It's going to be a bit hard for software to break into the physical world. And that means that there'll always be a human at the center of care. Now, look, in 100 years, I don't know. Hopefully I'm not alive, but there may be remote sensors or things that every person has implanted in them. And it's so good at figuring out what's going on with your physiology that maybe you don't need to examine patients anymore. Even then, I still think there'll be a human in the loop, like someone you can talk to, share your concerns. Maybe the role of the doctor changes a little bit then. Less about the computation of what's going on. It's more about the support and the humanity of it all. But for now, for our lifetimes, I'm pretty confident that it will look like using systems like Heidi to get rid of the things you hate. Actually go back to the golden era of medicine where you're not as burdened by things that aren't medicine. And all of the things we don't get fitted away by AI agents. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So wonderfully said. And thanks so much for Dr. Tom Kelly, founder and CEO of Heidi Health AI. It's an AI scribe. Check it out. Those links will be in the show notes. And with that, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks so much for having me, Chris.